May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be always acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. I don't know why, but I seem to not have much voice today. I think some of you might know why. There is a feeling running through today's readings. It's like that feeling you have when you wind up a music box that's playing a tune you know really, really well, and then it runs out of energy just before the last note. You can feel that. It just tenses you up inside. Or maybe you're playing a video game and you finally made it to the last level and you're at that point and your parents unplug the game. They're unsettling events because we are wired to seek resolution. There's something in us that needs things to resolve, to make sense, to land, to close the loop. Thomas is exactly like us in this. He knew Jesus died. And then his friends say, yes, he died, but he has been with us. He is now alive. That's not logical. Thomas says, I'll believe it when I see the holes in his hands. Jesus appears and shows his wounds to Thomas. He gave Thomas what he and all of us need, resolution. But now Jesus is preparing to leave his friends and return to his Father, and this time he will not give resolution. They want a breadcrumb trail. How can we possibly know the way? They don't realize yet that he is the breadcrumb trail. I am the way, the truth, and the life. It's not a map. It's not an instruction manual with impossibly tiny print. It is not a mission statement. It's not even the Farmer's Almanac. It's none of the stuff we rely on to navigate our lives. It is a person, Christ. The Gospels show us what relationship-based following looks like. On the road to Emmaus, they didn't recognize him by his appearance. They knew him in the blessing and breaking of bread. The Good Shepherd vignette, his sheep recognize his voice and follow. Maps don't help in this kind of following. Here's what that kind of relationship looks like. Jesus kneels to wash his disciples' feet. When he kneels at Peter's feet, Peter says, no way, you are not washing my feet. Jesus doesn't say, well, okay then, and move on to the next disciple. He says, unless I wash you, you will have no share in me. In other words, you are not in relationship with me. Many times I have sat in a pew and watched foot washing, usually because my hiker feet were in bad need of a pedicure. But there is something you cannot experience from a distance. When someone takes your smelly, calloused foot and washes it, there is proximity and vulnerability. You feel it. Something in you changes. This is, I think, what it means for Christ to be the way. Not something we observe, something we enter. A little over 30 years ago, I saw a book in a bookstore that caught my attention. It's called Richard Foster's Devotional Classics. I added it to my reading pile nonchalantly, and every now and then I'd skim the contents and then put it back in the pile. Well, several years went by, and then I just felt called to it one day, and I began to read one essay a week. About halfway through the book, I came to one written by Dallas Willard. And at the end of it, he defined the cost of non-discipleship. Non-discipleship costs abiding peace, a life penetrated throughout by love, faith that sees everything in the light of God's overriding governance for good, hopefulness that stands firm in the most discouraging of circumstances, power to do what is right and withstand the forces of evil. In short, non-discipleship costs exactly that abundance of life Jesus said he came to bring. Wow. When I read that, I remember the feeling even now. It felt like something in me, the back pew writer, was being named and invited at the same time. It was like foot washing. You can hear about it, you can understand it, but when it happens to you, something changes. I cut that paragraph out of the book and taped it into the pen drawer at my desk at the office. So every morning when I would pull out my mechanical pencil and pen, there were those words. The experience was not a roadmap. Through it, I was being drawn into a different way of life. Not because I had figured it all out, still working on that, but because I was finally open. Only later, much later, did I recognize that I was being led. We are changed along the way, not by figuring everything out, not by having a map, but by entering into a relationship that slowly and quietly transforms us. At St. Christopher's, we call our catechism class Along the Way. And that is not accidental. It's how faith works. We don't arrive fully formed. We are changed along the way. St. Chris does not have a map. We don't have that final note. We have Christ, and that has always been enough. I see this among you. I see it in the way you welcome people without filters, in the way you make room at the table, in the way you live out your promise to respect the dignity of every human life. In these in-between years, we have not stood still. We have been changed, and we are still being changed. Not because we have it all figured out, but because we are walking this way together, open, attentive, responsive to what God is doing among us in this moment. And so we take the next step, not with certainty, but with trust, not with a map, with Christ. Keep walking, because the Good Shepherd is still leading. Amen.